can try and win championships, and that's what it's all about. When you look from the outside and you watch this team, I know we're going to have a real good, solid hockey team this year.
What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Fireside Rangers. I'm your host, Anthony Rivardo, joined by my co-host, Eric Wilson, and today we have another New York Rangers trade rumor / speculation topic to cover, this time discussing Pierre-Luc Dubois. This would be a potential second-line center for the Rangers. Of course, we know that's a major position of need for them. Both Ryan Strome, the GOAT, and Andrew Kopp are unrestricted free agents this offseason. Eric's looking at me funny because he's the biggest Ryan Strome hater you have ever met in your life. But today we're going to be talking about potential Ryan Strome replacement, and that's what's got Eric excited. So, Eric, how are you doing today, and what are your thoughts on the Rangers being interested in Pierre-Luc Dubois?
I'm doing great. I'm always down to talk about any subject involving the replacement of Ryan Strome. And, Pierre-Luc Dubois is one of the perfect people that I could think of. He's a lot better than Strome and Kopp, in my opinion. He puts up a lot better points than both of them. And he's a lot younger, too. And, he's coming off to be a restricted free agent. So, the Rangers have shown a lot of interest in the past. And we know that the Jets are looking to move him. So if there's a way that we can pull this off, I would be more than happy to get him on our team and let him be the second line center that we've been looking for.
Absolutely. He would be a phenomenal addition as a second line center. 24 years old, 361 games played in his career, 102 goals, 137 assists for 239 total points. He scored 60 points in 2021-22 season. Had a really good year playing in 81 games. He's reliable. He'll be on the ice for the majority of the season. This is not the first time that he's played over 80 games in a season. So you know that he's going to be out there and he's going to be putting up some good points. He's a very good potential second-line center. And it is worth noting, as Eric mentioned, that the Rangers have been interested in Pierre-Luc Dubois for quite a while. I'll read a quote that explains that. Quote, "By the way, according to information obtained during the final, the New York Rangers would be more than interested in acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois. Ongoing negotiations with the Jets on the parameters of transaction. It's not done, but Chris Drury is very interested." And in fact, when you read a little further, the Rangers' interest in Dubois is not new. When he was on the block before Columbus traded him to Winnipeg in January of 2021, the Rangers were apparently in the last regime. They made several calls to try and acquire him. And it should be noted that Chris Drury was the assistant general manager at the time. And now he is the current Rangers general manager, as we all know. So, Eric, what are your thoughts kind of on the Rangers' almost relentless interest in Pierre-Luc Dubois dating back all the way to January of 2021?
I think it's totally justified. Pierre-Luc Dubois is definitely a player that we need and should want on our team. He was drafted third overall in 2016, only behind superstars like Austin Matthews and Patrick Laine. He's been producing all throughout his career, as you mentioned when you read his career stats, and he's a great center. He puts up points. He plays great defensively as well, and he'd be a great addition to that 5-on-5 play that we've been lacking throughout the last season of the playoffs, which ultimately cost us making it to the finals. So you look at a player like him, and I can't see any reason why you wouldn't want him on our team.
Couldn't agree more. And of course, diving in a little bit further into Pierre-Luc Dubois, as Eric also mentioned, he is a restricted free agent this offseason. And he's coming off of a 2-year deal with an average annual value of $5 million. So, his next contract is predicted to be hopefully under $6 million, though the price range could get a little bit out of control. But it's expected that his contract would potentially be worth less than an Andrew Kopp or a Ryan Strome contract, which is super important to note because the Rangers are strapped for cash, under $12 million to spend in salary cap space this offseason. They are going to have to make some sacrifices, and they might have to let some guys go, like Strome, like Kopp. And in this deal to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois, since he is a restricted free agent, they would have to trade for his rights. Now, that is the main hurdle here to acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois. You're not just signing Pierre-Luc Dubois, you are trading players away to obtain Pierre-Luc Dubois' rights. And that's kind of where things get interesting. And another thing to note with that is that Pierre-Luc Dubois is set on becoming a free agent in 2024 unrestricted. He wants to hit unrestricted free agency in 2024. So that's one thing to note with him, because if you're trading for his rights and you're going to have him on this contract till 2024, there is a chance that he does leave and just that's it. He's gone in 2024, or hopefully the Rangers would be able to extend him, but that's a huge question mark. And again, when you're talking about trading players away to acquire the rights to Pierre-Luc Dubois, you are talking about probably trading away some very young, very talented players, and maybe having Pierre-Luc Dubois leave in 2 years anyway. So, Eric, what are your thoughts on that? And who are some potential players that you would include in a Pierre-Luc Dubois trade?
See, it's interesting because, he wants to test that free agency market in 2024, as you said. And we also know that he's always wanted to play for his hometown team, the Montreal Canadiens, at some point in his career. So the Jets also have to know this by this point. So hopefully, with him being a restricted free agent right now, they wouldn't be asking for too much. A trade that I could see the Rangers maybe proposing to Winnipeg would be a prospect, probably a defenseman, because that's what Winnipeg is lacking in right now. Someone maybe like Matthew Robertson. Nobody too good, nobody at the bottom of a prospect tier list, and then maybe like a second or a third round pick, just for the rights to sign Pierre-Luc Dubois. Because then that leads us to our next issue, is just signing him. If Montreal wants to extend him an offer, he's most likely going to want to take that. And then it would be up to the Rangers to match that offer to eventually get him on the team. And, if we don't match, then we would eventually get picks in return from Montreal or whatever team that we don't match with, just kind of like an offer sheet, as we discussed with the Capo Caco situation. But, it's a little weird because we can either trade away some assets to acquire his rights and then sign him, or we can acquire his rights and then just get draft picks. And as we've said in the last couple of episodes, draft picks aren't really what we need right now. What we need is good star players that we want on our team. So the only way that I can really see this working out perfectly is if we trade away very little to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois and then extend him an offer and then have him just accept it right away. Even if it's just for 2 years, because he wants to test the free agency market as a UFA in 2024, I would still say that it would be 100% worth it. We're in our Stanley Cup window right now. We came 2 games short of the finals this year, and with just a year or two more of experience for younger guys and acquiring more star players like Pierre-Luc Dubois, I think that would be just enough for what the Rangers need to make it to the finals and hopefully win. So I would say if you're Chris Drury, definitely make an attempt, a very strong attempt at acquiring him and getting him to sign with us as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, I definitely think it's worth making a strong attempt to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois, but I am a little bit worried as to what the Rangers would have to give up. Now, you do some reading about this. There's an article from the New York Post. Forever Blue Shirts has an article as well, but New York Post mentions Philip Hedl as a name. Forever Blue Shirts mentions Capo Caco as a name. Eric, Capo Caco or Pierre-Luc Dubois? I want to know you pick between those two players.
Okay, this is another tough one because, it's, do you trust the process or do you want to try to jump the gun? If you just give it a couple more years, Capo Caco, even though he hasn't been showing that much since we drafted him, he will eventually develop into a solid NHL player. Or we can trade him away, let him become that solid NHL player somewhere else, and just instantly pick up that second line center that we've been needing. And the reason that I am going to pick Pierre-Luc Dubois over Capo Caco is because Caco is a winger, and the one thing that we have an absurd abundance of is wingers. It'll be a shame to let talent like Capo Caco go, and it might end up hurting us in the end. But I hate to say it, but he's easily replaceable on this team. He's a great player. I love him. But if we send him off for a better player like Dubois, we can instantly find another player in the same level as Caco right now and just fill him right back in that third line. And I hate to say it, but that's just business. If we want to win as quickly as possible, trading Caco, if it came down to it, would definitely be worth it.
Yeah, and I can't say I disagree. In fact, I do agree. I think that Capo Caco being involved in this trade is a good idea. I think it's a good way. You give up Capo Caco and maybe some prospect, and you might be able to get this trade done. And with Capo Caco, I think the writing is kind of on the wall anyway. We had our discussion video about Capo Caco's contract and what the Rangers should do. Go check that out. It's a previous episode on the channel. Click the channel, go find it. And we break down the contract info on Capo Caco and everything. But one of the things that we said is we would love to keep him, but it almost seems like the Rangers would not love to keep him. Making him a healthy scratch in Game 6 of the Eastern Conference Finals, it just seems like maybe they're not as high on him internally within the organization as the fans are. And it is a little bit concerning, but again, Eric makes a great point. Wingers, Rangers have plenty of them. Second line center, it's a major need. So the way that I'm looking at it, I am willing to give up Kapko in order to fill this need of second line center because I don't want to see Ryan Strome continue as a second line center, right, Eric? But I would like to see, Artemi Panarin continue as one of the wingers. Like we've got wingers, we've got a lot of talent on the wing, and I do think that the main priority right now is to win now with a good second line center. That is the number one thing that the Rangers need to push them out of the Eastern Conference Finals and into the Stanley Cup Finals, in my opinion, is a really solid second line center. But I do want to propose another name to you, Eric. Filip Chytil. What are your thoughts? Are you willing to give up Filip Chytil in order to acquire Pierre-Luc Dubois?
Maybe, because let's just say we trade Chytil for Pierre-Luc Dubois. Then we fill in our second line center gap, but then we instantly open up another gap at the third line center, So it's kind of just like getting rid of one demon for another. So, we might have to throw in a couple other players, and Winnipeg would have to throw someone else in just to like kind of fix it all up, and then we'd have to sign someone else. It would just create a huge mess for the Rangers organization that I don't know if we have the cap space or like the time to do. If the deal is perfect, then yeah, throw Filip Chytil in and get Pierre-Luc Dubois. But unless it's like the most amazing trade offer we've ever seen, I would say keep as many centers as we need because that's where we've been lacking the last couple of years, and we can't really afford to give that many away.
I'm going to say that I once again agree with you, Eric. I don't want to see Filip Chytil involved in this trade. I'm agreeing with this article that I read through by the New York Post, kind of just explaining that putting Filip Chytil into this trade would be a mistake. There are other guys like Kaapo Nils Lundqvist is also another option that you could see as a prospect involved in a trade alongside Kaapo. I really like that mock trade, but a mock trade involving Filip Chytil, I'm not too crazy about. I think really you hit it on the head when you discussed how you're basically giving away a center for a center. And yes, that might be, of interest to Winnipeg. They might want to acquire a center in return for giving away a second line center, but for the Rangers, I don't think it makes sense to give up a third line center in order to get a second line center because then you're just creating another hole in the center of your team. So I agree with you there. I'm not giving up Filip Chytil, but Kaapo I am willing to give up in this trade. And I do think there's a lot to be interested by with Pierre-Luc Dubois. Again, I think he's a very solid second line center. Would be probably around $6 million or less average annual value on his contract. Definitely something that would be tough for the Rangers to afford, but it is possible for them to afford. But once again, there is that thing to mention, the offer sheets, right, Eric? You mentioned it earlier. What if the Rangers trade for him? A team comes in with $8 million average annual value on Pierre-Luc Dubois. Well, then what are the Rangers going to do? Because they cannot afford to pay that. And then they're kind of just shit out of luck, right? They're screwed. They cannot even, they'll just be trading away players and then eventually getting picks in return for compensation on the offer sheet. But Eric, that's kind of a nightmare scenario, right? Is the risk worth the potential reward?
It all depends on who's involved in that trade package that we send over to Winnipeg. If we just throw some mediocre prospects and a couple picks over there for his rights, then yeah, if we get just a couple good picks in return, I'm fine with that. But then, Kaapo, if we send him over to Winnipeg and then Pierre-Luc Dubois doesn't want to sign with us and we just get a couple of random draft picks in return, then that might be one of the worst trades in New York Rangers organization history. Which is why I am skeptical about throwing Kakko in the trade. It seemed like we were a little eager to do it. I just want to point out we don't want to see him go. It just might be one of those things that would be worth it if we knew that it would work out for us in the long run. So it would be a huge risk to throw big name players in there, which is why I would want to avoid that as much as possible. Prospects like Lundqvist, Robertson, as I've mentioned earlier, or does anyone who probably doesn't really have a chance of cracking the roster because of how much in depth our defense is, and that's what they need. That's what I would be comfortable with. But Kakko, maybe a bit of a risk. Keep it low, keep the cost low. Winnipeg knows that he's probably just going to go test the free agency. So hopefully they won't be asking for too much.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And again, refresher, we do really like Capo. We don't want to see him go. It's just in this potential trade, if you know that you're getting Pierre-Luc Dubois back in return for Capo and maybe a pick or a prospect, then yes, I'm cool with it. But generally speaking, I do want to see Capo remain with the New York Rangers. I want to see them give him a good offer as a restricted free agent this offseason. But it is worth noting, you kind of mentioned, there's going to be teams interested. The Rangers, they can trade for him. Teams might come in with a big offer sheet. Other teams might outbid the Rangers in this trade anyway. There was 12 teams reportedly who inquired to trade for Pierre-Luc Dubois back in January 2021, including the New York Rangers. I think actually not even including the New York Rangers. I think once you put the Rangers in there, it's 13 total teams. So there is a huge market for Pierre-Luc Dubois, and that market does not end once he gets traded. It ends once he signs an offer sheet, and that's the scary part of this. In my opinion, this is too risky of a trade to do. I'm personally not totally in for it. I think all the points you make, Eric, really great. There is an avenue where I would be really excited for the Rangers acquiring Pierre-Luc Dubois, but it's too much risk. I think the reward is great, but it is just too risky in my opinion. What are your thoughts on that, Eric?
I'll say it again. It depends on the package. If we're throwing a lot of assets into there, too much of a risk. But if we can keep it low, maybe a couple draft picks and just a mediocre prospect, definitely worth the risk. Because then in that case, worst case scenario, you're just making back draft picks.
Absolutely. And anyway, that kind of wraps up this topic. Let us know down in the comment section below. Is the risk worth the reward in your opinion? Is this a trade that the Rangers should try to make? Are you comfortable putting Capo in the deal? Maybe not. Are you comfortable putting Filip Chytil in the deal? Maybe not. Let us know down in the comment section below. We love to chat and engage with you all. Make sure to leave a like if you did enjoy this video. Subscribe if you're new. Ring the bell so you do not miss a video. And we'll catch you all on the next one. Have a good one. And let's go Rangers.
Go Rangers.
He shoots. He scores. Rangers.